Hello, dear family. Are you enjoying our journey through the life of the greatest woman peacemaker of all time? I hope so. We are nearing the end of chapter 2 of The Mother of Peace. And the title of today's message is A Scale by Which to Measure My Purpose in Life. As we covered in the last episode, True Mother, her mother, and grandmother escaped to the south and luckily found Uncle Sunjong, who helped them settle down there. For almost 2 years, they were getting used to life in Seoul, and True Mother was enjoying going to school. However, that peace was short-lived. It was the summer of 1950, and the Korean War was about to break out. True Mother remembers that moment vividly. It was early on a hot summer morning. Red balsam flowers blossomed on one side of our courtyard, and thick, old willow and sycamore trees stood along the street. I was 7 years old, but I remember the moment clearly, as a frantic neighbor burst into our living room with the words, "War has broken out! The North Korean army has crossed the 38th parallel." Apprehensive residents gathered in the alley in groups of 2 and 3. War is a confusing experience, especially at this time in South Korea when there was still no strongly established system of defense or communication. There were rumors flying around and various government reports, but nobody could really know for sure what was going on. The citizens of Seoul became anxious, but they didn't know what to do. And even if they escaped, where would they go? What happened next was unthinkable. The South Korean interim government packed up its headquarters and moved to the city of Daejeon, 90 miles south of Seoul. But it would only be a matter of time before the North Korean army would descend upon the capital. In order to block the invading army from reaching any further south, they would have to blow up the Han River Bridge on the south side of Seoul, which meant relinquishing their capital city into the hands of the North Koreans, along with any remaining inhabitants. It must have been a terribly difficult decision for them. There was no time and no way to properly communicate with the citizens and evacuate the city. Whoever remained on the north side of that bridge would essentially become engulfed by the Communist Party. The government had no way to protect them or the city itself. Instead, they sacrificed the city and used it as their last bastion of protection for the sake of the southern peninsula. They could do little or nothing to help the city's residents, who were crying out for Seoul's defense. 2 days later, my mother woke up at dawn and began packing our clothes in a bundle. Awakened by the rustling noise, I kept my eyes shut and listened to her conversation with my grandmother. "We have to seek refuge," my mother said. "After the communists get here, they'll kill us." "I know they are bad," my grandmother responded, "but do you think they would treat women harshly?" "If they find out we escaped from the north," my mother responded, "they will probably kill us on the spot." By June 27, 1950, they were 3 days into the war, and the residents of Seoul realized that they needed to escape for their lives. That evening, under a gentle summer rain, the timid citizens began to stream out of their neighborhoods, making their way towards the only escape route to the south, the Han River Bridge. As they weaved their way through the alleys and onto the main streets of Seoul, they began to realize that they were not the only ones in search of safety. It's as if the entire city had become self-aware, and everyone was trying to escape. Hundreds of thousands were making their way towards that bridge to safety. Little did they know that the South Korean army had rigged detonators and explosives in preparation to destroy it, regardless of who was on it. Our true mother was right there, now barely 7 years old, and she was about to witness the most horrific sight of her life. This was war. My grandmother, mother, and I joined the exodus with our bundle, following the throng moving toward the Han River Bridge. When its dim shape appeared in the dark, something told me to stop, and I grabbed my grandmother's skirt. She stopped in her tracks, and my mother turned round and asked her, "Mother, what's wrong?" Grandmother looked up at the sky and then glanced down at me. She turned her head again in the direction of our house. "Sunjong may come," she said with a steady tone, speaking of her son, my uncle. It seemed senseless to turn around when everyone else was fleeing the city, but she was firm. "Let's go back in case he does." My mother understood. The three of us made our way back home, fighting the crowds. This is unthinkably amazing. They are already late, and even if they manage to make their way to the bridge, there's no assurance that they will be able to cross. And even if they can cross, there's no assurance that they will be able to cross it in time. But instead of continuing towards it, they turn around as if guided by heaven against all common sense. Starting with the tug from True Mother on her grandmother's skirt, all three of them chose to turn around with thousands of people going in the opposite direction. What must the other people have thought when they saw these three defenseless women weaving their way back through in the wrong direction, back through the crowd in the wrong direction? Nonetheless, they were determined to go back home, and somehow comforted by the fact that they were again being guided by divine inspiration. When we got home, I spread out my blanket and lay down to sleep, but it was not long before I was awakened by the noise of a 3/4-ton truck. Its headlights illuminated our room as the door suddenly burst open. There was my uncle in his military uniform. It turns out that Uncle Sunjong, who is now based in the army headquarters as a military medic, knew that they were preparing to destroy the bridge in order to block the North Korean army. Knowing that his family was in danger, he immediately requisitioned a truck and sped to their home. With all the chaos that was going on, you can't imagine that it would be even possible to find anyone under those circumstances. He must have been driving like crazy. Mother says that as he arrived, he screeched to a halt in the alleyway and left the engine running, with the bright headlights peering through the midnight fog through the windows of their small home. My grandmother and mother gasped sighs of relief and hope. I thought to myself, "We can leave now," and I felt at ease. "Hurry," he barked. "We have to move now." We climbed in with our already packed bundle, and he drove us toward the bridge. In the pre-dawn hours, crowds of refugees were swarming there from all directions, creating total chaos. We moved forward at a snail's pace on the congested street. As an army officer, my uncle had the official pass necessary to take a vehicle across the bridge. Honking the horn, he inched the truck through the crowd. Held in my mother's arms, I clung to her and gazed at the people fleeing their homes, their fear and confusion increasing by the minute. By this age, True Mother had already witnessed many things, but she had never seen such a sight as this. As she clung to her mother, peering through the window of the truck, she noticed a growing fear painted on the faces of the people. It turns out that those images of fear were foreshadowing a greater tragedy to come. As soon as we crossed the bridge, my uncle shouted, "Get down in your seats!" As I squeezed down to the floor at my mother's feet, a huge explosion behind us shook our truck. There was a blue flash and a deafening sound. My uncle set the emergency brake and turned off the engine. Together, we jumped out of the truck and clambered down into the ditch at the side of the road. I turned my face to the bridge and witnessed the next explosion. I saw a light like a demon's burning eyes piercing the night. Countless civilians as well as soldiers and policemen who were crossing the bridge were thrown about like plastic toys, flying everywhere, cast into the river below. For us, a few meters proved to be the difference between life and death. Our lives had been spared. Soldiers, policemen, innocent civilians, mothers and children, all South Koreans torn to shreds by Korean explosives. No one is safe in war. How is it possible that our true mother's life was spared again? But this is not just another account of the miracles surrounding her life. This moment turned out to make an indelible impression on this young daughter of God. I closed my eyes, and many thoughts flashed across my mind. Why would anyone start a war? Why did innocent people have to die? Why is God permitting such pain and suffering? Who can bring an end to this madness? I could not conceive of any answers. When I reopened my eyes, I saw that the bridge was cut in half. The military succeeded in blocking the entrance to the south, but they did so at an unthinkable cost. As True Mother absorbed the immensity of what had happened, she began to realize how big the presence of evil was and how much human suffering there is because of it. What remained amid the corpses, the screaming wounded, and the dazed survivors was an ugly skeleton of steel, smoldering in the dark. The Han River Bridge was blown up at 3 a.m. on June 28, 1950. Even though the South Korean government had announced that it would defend Seoul, it severed the only link to safety, even before the North Korean People's Army came to the city. Hundreds of people fleeing the city were killed. In the last episode, we talked about True Mother's precious heart of love that was designed by heaven. But here, in this mess, True Mother's precious heart was exposed to the worst, the most unimaginable, unthinkable terror. What do you think that did to her outlook on life from that age? What do you think that experience did to make her more aware of her mission? Amidst this desperate crisis, through the help of my uncle, my life and the lives of my family were preserved. At that critical moment, God guided me and protected us from danger. Even today, when I cross a bridge over the Han River, I see that blue flash and hear people's agonized screams echoing as if they are still burning in hell. My heart aches at the sound. At a young age, I directly witnessed the horror of war and experienced the wretched life of a refugee. The simple and innocent were killed like flies. Children who had lost their parents were crying and wandering in the streets. I was only 7, but I became so serious that war has to vanish forever from this world. It took place 70 years ago, but my throat still tightens when I recall the night the Han River Bridge fell. For several months after this, Mother's family wandered as refugees, barely able to survive. Eventually, the UN forces were able to take back Seoul, and they could return, but only for a short time before another massive wave of attacks came from the north, this time aided by China. 500,000 communist Chinese troops invaded Korea across the Yalu River. On January 4, 1951, the South Korean army again abandoned Seoul, and we again had to escape. This time, we were able to board a train for the families of soldiers, and we safely arrived at the city of Daegu. The day-after-day sights and sounds of our year-long wilderness course from the north to the south defy description. I saw countless dead bodies, adults, children, victims of freezing, starvation, disease, and battle. Look, Mother is for real. True Mother is the real deal. She really is taking on this huge scale of world peace in her lifetime. Look, she was already motivated to attend God, already motivated to attend her family and elders, already motivated to love and enjoy the beauty of God's creation. But now, you know the circumstances that must have had such a huge impact on her life. She would never be the same again. Those memories are a scar on her heart that still makes her cry for the suffering of humanity. From then, she was propelled to find the true meaning behind these tragedies. Just like our true father from a young age under Japanese colonial occupation, she too was praying to find the answers behind these unthinkable acts in order to end suffering. Out of the smoldering ashes of those innocent burning bodies, she was beginning to recognize the larger purpose of her life. Think of the scope of what she had witnessed. By age 7, she had experienced the communist takeover of her country. She had surrendered to her father's departure. She supported her mother and grandmother through their imprisonment. She experienced the most horrendous religious persecution. She had to leave the only home she ever knew and loved, to walk over 200 kilometers through dangerous, muddy terrain without food or water. She experienced unbearable hunger. She was caught by police and detained in custody by North Korean soldiers. She crossed the 38th parallel through a minefield and almost got shot by South Korean soldiers. She experienced homelessness, wandering around an unknown city in search for a place to rest their heads. And now, she had personally lived on the front line at the outbreak of the Korean War. She knows what it looks like to try and run to freedom amidst thousands of evacuees. She knows what it is like to escape for your life across a bridge to the unknown. True Mother knows what it looks like to see innocent people thrown up into the air and ripped apart. She has seen defenseless children broken-boned and bleeding, hopelessly crying out for their parents. She knows what burning flesh looks like. She knows what it smells like. This is the reality that also rests in the heart of our true Mother. Of course, she longs to free humanity from any possibility of war ever again. Don't you think so? When we look at True Mother, we need to know who we are dealing with. This isn't just a story. It's the reality of what happened to this young girl. No matter what Satan threw at her, not only did she survive, she grew wiser and her heart grew deeper. She began a course that would take her spirit to the place of being willing to sacrifice her entire life for the sake of humanity's peace. She truly, truly is the mother of peace. She knows that true peace is not possible by human power alone. You can see her working to bring world leaders together, even enemies together for the sake of world peace. But when she stands on stage and delivers her message, we should consider the foundation of her seriousness. She's not simply the wife of a religious leader trying to make the world a better place. She is determined to eradicate the evil from our midst, and she needs our help to do so. She needs your help to do so. Look, guys, we are an awesome worldwide community, but we are not here for our own sakes. We are not blessed for our own sakes. We are called, okay? We are chosen in this time to embrace our original purpose, Reflect for a moment. What is it in your life that has given you a scale by which to measure your purpose? Are you inspired? Are you inspired? Are you tapping into your original energy? Do you know what your purpose is? How big it is? We need to become one with those whom God prepared to save us from our wretched history. Look, there's no book or self-help course or magic pill that will bring us to our ultimate goal of total human happiness without reconnecting to our true root. True parents are those who came to alleviate our suffering. Can you see? It is all they have committed their lives to. And when you read the simple account of their lives, it starts to make more sense. True mother was destined. And she made it. God bless her, she made it. My family and I teetered on the brink of death, but somehow, throughout this journey for survival, I felt God was with us. There was a greater power protecting our family as we escaped the north and found refuge in the south. Heavenly Parent gave me more than a sense of meaning and value. He provided me with a scale by which to measure my purpose in life.